Busy night for you, dear? Oh, the usual.
Gloria Jorgen made $3 an hour plus tips at Pearl's
Busy
Diner in
night for
Koreatown,
you,
Los
dear?
Angeles. On November
Oh,
18th at 11:47
the
p.m., three
usual.
armed men kicked through the door, demanding the night's cash.
Don't move.
$340
Hands up.
that wasn't hers to
Please don't
lose.
hurt us.
But when the
The
youngest
money.
gunman
Now.
swung
Oh,
his
God,
weapon toward the
please.
frail
Okay.
Korean woman sitting alone in booth 7, Gloria didn't calculate odds or consequences. She simply stepped between the barrel and the stranger. What Gloria didn't know, the woman she shielded was Kyung-la, matriarch of the Jang family, one of the most feared Korean-American organizations on the West Coast. By 6 a.m., 17 black SUVs surrounded Pearl's Diner. By 7 a.m., Sang-hoon Jang, Kyung's son and current head of the family, stood at Gloria's counter with an offer that sounded like a threat and a promise that felt like a cage. Because in Korean tradition, when you save someone's life, you don't just earn gratitude. You inherit a debt so profound it binds bloodlines across generations. And Sang-hoon Jang always paid his debts. Now, before you assume this is just another good deed gets rewarded story, let me stop you right there. What happens when the Korean Mafia decides your family isn't a blessing? It's a beautiful, terrifying trap you can't escape. And Gloria is about to learn that some rescues cost more than you can imagine. Hit subscribe, because what unfolds in the next 24 hours will make you question everything you thought you knew about loyalty, protection, and the price of kindness. Gloria Jorgen moved through Pearl's Diner with the efficiency of someone who'd memorized every crack in the linoleum, every squeak in the vinyl booths. 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday meant the late-night rush was over. Just 2 customers left. A truck driver nursing his third coffee at the counter, and an elderly Korean woman in booth 7 who'd been there for 3 hours, barely touching her tea. The diner sat on a struggling corner of Koreatown where the neon signs flickered with the exhaustion of businesses holding on by their fingernails. Pearls had survived 3 recessions, 2 riots, and the slow gentrification that was pricing out everyone who'd built the neighborhood. It survived because Mr. Park, the owner, treated his employees like family and his customers like honored guests, even when they could only afford coffee and toast. Gloria had worked there for 6 years, ever since the fancy restaurant downtown fired her for not fitting their aesthetic. She knew what that meant. She'd known her whole life what that phrase really translated to. At 32, she'd stopped being angry about it and started being strategic. Pearls paid under the table when her work permit issues got complicated. Mr. Park never asked questions about her foster care history or the gaps in her resume. He just watched her work for 1 shift and said, "You start tomorrow." 6 a.m. That was 6 years ago. 6 years of double shifts and aching feet and customers who sometimes left 50-cent tips on $20 checks. But it was steady. It was safe. And in Gloria's life, those 2 things were rarer than diamonds. The woman in booth 7 came every Tuesday and Thursday. Always the same seat, the one by the window facing the street where she could watch the world pass by. Always green tea, unsweetened. Sometimes a small bowl of rice with kimchi. She spoke almost no English, and Gloria spoke no Korean, but they developed a wordless understanding. Gloria knew to bring the tea without being asked. The woman knew to have exact change ready, always including precisely 15% tip, counted to the penny. Gloria didn't know her name, didn't know where she lived, or why she spent 3 hours twice a week sitting alone in a diner nursing cold tea. She'd learned a long time ago not to ask questions about customers who looked like they were running from something or searching for something they'd lost. Tonight, the woman seemed different, more alert. Her eyes kept moving to the door, to the windows, tracking movement on the street outside. Gloria noticed, but didn't comment. In a neighborhood like this, everyone had reasons to be watchful. Gloria was wiping down table 3, the one where the college kids usually studied until they got kicked out for ordering 1 coffee and staying 4 hours, when she heard it. Not the door opening, the door exploding. The old hinges gave way under the force of the kick, metal screaming as it tore away from the frame. The door crashed inward, hanging at a sickening angle, and 3 masked men stormed through the opening with the kind of feral energy that said they were either high, desperate, or both. Register. Now. Now, the youngest one screamed, his gun shaking so badly Gloria could see the tremor from across the room. His voice cracked on the second now. Young, maybe 19, trying to sound hard and failing. Gloria's hands froze on the cleaning rag. She'd been robbed twice before in 6 years. The first time, she'd been so terrified she'd wet herself and spent the rest of the shift crying in the bathroom. The second time, she'd opened the register with steady hands, counted out the bills, and wished them a good night with only a slight tremor in her voice. This time felt different. This time, the energy was wrong. These weren't professional criminals making calculated moves. These were addicts looking for a fix, and addicts were unpredictable, dangerous in ways that professionals weren't. The truck driver at the counter slowly raised his hands, coffee forgotten. His eyes met Gloria's for a fraction of a second, a warning, a wish for luck, a goodbye just in case. Gloria moved toward the register, hands visible, movements slow and deliberate. Okay, no problem. I'm opening it now. No one needs to get hurt. The leader, older, maybe 30, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, gestured with his gun. Hurry up. Move. Gloria's fingers found the register key. She'd practiced this. Knew exactly which bills to grab first. How to make it look like she was cooperating fully while leaving the 20s in the back slot where most robbers didn't look. But the youngest one wasn't watching her. His eyes had locked onto booth 7, onto the elderly Korean woman who sat perfectly still, watching the scene unfold with an expression Gloria couldn't read. Not fear. Not surprise. Something else. Something that looked almost like resignation. Or recognition. You. The young gunman's voice cracked. He swung the barrel toward the woman, steps jerky and aggressive. Phone and purse. Now, the woman didn't move. Didn't even blink. She sat with her hands folded on the table, green tea going cold beside them, and watched the gun point at her chest with the calm of someone who'd seen worse. I said now. The gunman was getting agitated. His finger moved on the trigger, not pulling, but shifting. The kind of nervous movement that ended with accidents. And Gloria, who'd spent 32 years learning when to be invisible, who'd survived foster care and homelessness and every shade of discrimination by knowing when to bow her head and when to run, Gloria moved. She didn't think, didn't calculate, didn't consider that she made $3 an hour plus tips, and this woman was a stranger who might not even speak English. She simply saw the gun, saw the shaking finger, saw the old woman's calm face, and her body made the decision before her brain could interfere. Gloria stepped between them, put her body in the space where the bullet would travel, felt the cold metal of the gun barrel press against her ribs through her cheap polyester uniform. Tom did something strange, stretched and compressed simultaneously. Gloria saw everything with crystal clarity. The gunman's surprised intake of breath, the way his pupils were blown wide. Definitely high on something. The small scar on his hand that looked like a childhood burn, the exact moment his brain processed what she'd done and tried to decide what to do about it. Take the money, Gloria heard herself say. Her voice came out steadier than it had any right to be. Calm, almost conversational. It's all there. $340. Take it and go. Leave her alone. The gunman stared at her like she'd spoken a language he didn't understand. His gun hand wavered. Behind him, the leader was stuffing bills into a backpack, cursing at how little there was. Then sirens. Distant but approaching. Someone must have hit a silent alarm. Probably the truck driver, Gloria thought distantly. Smart man. Go, go, go. The leader grabbed the youngest gunman's arm, yanking him toward the broken door. The three of them bolted, disappearing into the Los Angeles night as quickly as they'd appeared, leaving only the broken door and the ringing silence of aftermath. Gloria stood frozen, her legs shaking so badly she had to grab the edge of booth 7 to stay upright. Her heart hammered against her ribs like it was trying to crack them open. Her hands trembled. She could feel the exact circular imprint where the gun barrel had pressed into her side, could smell the sharp tang of fierce sweat on her own skin. The truck driver was already on his phone with 911, giving descriptions and location details with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this before. And the elderly Korean woman looked up at Gloria with eyes that were suddenly, impossibly sharp. Not the gentle, distant eyes of someone killing time over tea. These were the eyes of someone who saw everything, calculated everything, remembered everything. The woman reached into her purse, slowly, deliberately, telegraphing every movement. She pulled out $300 bills. Crisp. New. The kind you got from a bank, not from a cash register. She set them on the table with the kind of care usually reserved for sacred objects. When she spoke, her voice was soft, but carried weight Gloria felt rather than understood. The words hung in the air. Gloria didn't speak Korean, couldn't even identify the language by sound with certainty. But somehow, in that moment, the meaning translated itself, imprinted on her consciousness like a brand. Your kindness will not be forgotten. The woman stood, steadier than someone her age had any right to be, especially after nearly being shot. She moved with the kind of controlled grace that spoke of training, of discipline, of a life lived in awareness of danger. She walked to the broken door, paused at the threshold to look back at Gloria one more time, and then disappeared into the night like she'd never been there at all. Gloria stared at the money. $300. More than she made in a week of double shifts. Almost enough to cover the rent that was 3 days late and the electricity bill that came with a disconnection warning. She picked up the bills with trembling hands, fingers leaving sweat marks on the paper. She didn't understand. Didn't understand why she'd done what she'd done. Didn't understand who that woman was. Didn't understand why stepping in front of a gun for a complete stranger felt like the only choice she could have made. The police arrived 8 minutes later. 2 officers who'd clearly been here before, who knew Mr. Park by name when he came running from his apartment upstairs, still in his pajamas, face pale with fear. They asked the standard questions. How many robbers? What were they wearing? Did they have weapons? How much money did they take? Did anyone get hurt? Gloria answered mechanically, describing the 3 masked men, their approximate heights and builds, the guns they carried, the $340 they'd stolen from the register. But she didn't mention the woman in booth 7. Didn't mention the gun pointed at her chest or Gloria's decision to step in front of it. Didn't mention the $300 bills now folded in her apron pocket. She didn't know why she kept that secret. Some instinct whispered that whatever had just happened, whoever that woman was, it was better left unsaid. The police didn't need to know. Mr. Park didn't need to know. Nobody needed to know that Gloria had just done something that might change her life in ways she couldn't begin to predict. After the police left, after the broken door was secured as best they could manage with rope and a chair wedged against it, after the truck driver paid his check and left a $20 tip with a quiet, "You're brave, kid," Gloria climbed the exterior staircase to her studio apartment above the diner. It was a perk of the job, rent-free housing in exchange for being available for emergencies and opening the diner at 5 a.m. when Mr. Park's arthritis was acting up. The apartment was barely 400 square feet. A bed, a kitchenette with 2 burners that worked intermittently, a bathroom with water pressure that varied based on what the neighbors were doing, and a window that overlooked the alley where the restaurant dumpsters lived. It wasn't much, but it was hers. It was safe. It was the first place since foster care where she'd lived for more than 18 months without being evicted or forced out. Gloria sat on her second-hand couch, rescued from a curb in Silver Lake, reupholstered with fabric from a discount store, still sagging in the middle but comfortable enough, and stared at the $300 bills. Your kindness will not be forgotten. The woman's voice echoed in her memory. The weight of those words felt heavier than the paper money in her hands. Gloria fell asleep still fully dressed, the bills clutched against her chest, cheap polyester uniforms smelling like coffee and fierce sweat, and the particular staleness of a diner at the end of a long shift. She dreamed of guns and sirens and an old woman's eyes that saw too much, knew too much, remembered everything. At 5:47 a.m., Gloria woke to a sound that didn't belong. Not the usual garbage trucks or delivery vans or Mr. Park's shuffling footsteps as he started breakfast prep. This was different. Multiple engines. Heavy engines. The low rumble of expensive vehicles idling in formation. She went to her window and looked down at the street. Her blood turned to ice. 17 black SUVs surrounded Pearl's diner. Not parked, positioned. Strategic placements at every intersection, every alley, every possible approach or exit. Men in black suits stood at attention every 10 feet, hands folded in front of them, earpieces visible, the unmistakable posture of professional security. The entire block had been shut down. No traffic, no pedestrians, just the SUVs and the men and the early morning sun turning everything gold and surreal. And in front of the diner's broken door, now somehow repaired, Gloria noticed with disbelief, the hinges gleaming new in the dawn light, stood a man who looked like he'd been carved from marble and dressed in a suit that cost more than Gloria's car. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with the kind of build that came from discipline rather than vanity. His black hair was perfectly styled, not a strand out of place despite the early hour. His suit was charcoal gray, clearly bespoke, fitting him with the precision of something made by hands that understood fabric and body as art. Even from her second-floor window, Gloria could see the quality of the watch on his wrist, the kind of timepiece that cost as much as a year's rent. He stood perfectly still, hands clasped in front of him, and looked directly up at her window. Their eyes met across the distance, and Gloria felt something cold slide down her spine. He bowed, a deep, formal bow from the waist, held for 3 full seconds before rising. The gesture was so unexpected, so incongruous with the small army surrounding the diner, that Gloria's mind couldn't process it. Then her phone rang. Unknown number. New York area code, which made no sense at all. Every instinct Gloria had screamed not to answer, but her hand moved of its own accord, accepting the call, bringing the phone to her ear. Miss Jurgen. The voice was male, smooth, with perfect English and just a trace of an accent she couldn't place. My name is Sang-Hoon Jang. I believe we need to talk. Gloria's mouth went dry. She looked down at the man standing in front of the diner. He hadn't moved, was still looking up at her window, and as she watched, he raised one hand in a small wave. What? Gloria's voice came out as a croak. She cleared her throat, tried again. What do you want? To thank you. To pay a debt. To ensure your safety. A pause. And to explain why 17 vehicles and 32 of my people are currently securing your place of employment. I don't understand. No, I imagine you don't. But if you come downstairs, I promise to clarify everything. His voice held no threat, no aggression, just infinite patience. I'll wait as long as necessary. But I would very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you face to face. And if I refuse, then I'll continue waiting. But the conversation will happen eventually, Miss Jurgen. Because the woman you protected last night was my mother. And in my family, such debts are not ignored. The call disconnected before Gloria could respond. She stood at her window, phone still pressed to her ear, watching the man below, Sang-Hoon Jang, he'd said, watching her with the patience of someone who had all the time in the world and the resources to enforce whatever outcome he desired. Gloria thought about not going down, about calling the police, about hiding, about pretending none of this was happening. But she had a shift starting in 13 minutes, had rent due in 5 days, had a life that required showing up even when that life got complicated in ways she never asked for. She changed into clean clothes, jeans and a t-shirt, because if she was meeting the Korean Mafia, and that's clearly what this was, her mind supplied helpfully, she wasn't doing it in her polyester uniform. She pulled her hair into a ponytail, washed her face, brushed her teeth, and tried to make her hands stop shaking. At 6:03 a.m., Gloria descended the exterior staircase wearing 3-year-old Nikes she'd resold twice and a thrift store jacket that had a small stain on the left sleeve she'd never quite managed to get out. The contrast between her outfit and the men in their $1,000 suits was almost comical. Almost. Sang-Hoon watched her approach. Up close, he was younger than she'd expected, late 30s, maybe 40. His face was all sharp angles and controlled expression, the kind of face that gave away nothing unless he wanted it to. His eyes were dark, intelligent, assessing her in the time it took most people to blink. Handsome, Gloria registered distantly. Dangerous, her survival instincts added. Powerful, her experience with men like this concluded. Miss Jurgen. He bowed again, not as deep as before, but still formal, respectful. Thank you for seeing me. I didn't have much choice, did I? Gloria gestured at the small army. Kinda hard to ignore. Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. Or respect for her directness. May we speak inside? Dinner doesn't open for another hour. I'm aware. He produced a key from his jacket pocket. Shiny, new, clearly just cut. Mr. Park gave permission. I called him at 5 a.m. Explained the situation. Gloria's stomach dropped. You talked to Mr. Park? I called him. Explained who I was. Explained what happened last night. Explained that I needed to speak with you and that I would very much appreciate his cooperation. Sang-hoon's expression didn't change. He was understanding. Translation, terrified. Gloria knew Mr. Park. He was a kind man who'd given her a job when no one else would, who paid her under the table when the system made legal employment impossible, who brought her leftover food when he knew she was skipping meals to make rent. He was also smart enough to know when you didn't say no to people who rolled this deep. Inside the diner, Gloria noticed things that hadn't been there 6 hours ago. The door wasn't just fixed, it was new, better than the old one. The broken window had been replaced. The floor had been swept and mopped. Even the cash register, which had been left open and empty, was closed and showed a balance that made Gloria's eyes widen. You put money in the register? Replacing what was stolen, plus damages, plus inconvenience. Mr. Park will find $15,000 when he opens today. Enough to cover lost business and any repairs I might have missed. $15,000. Gloria's head spun. Sang-hoon didn't sit. Just stood near booth 7, his mother's usual spot, Gloria realized, and turned to face her with the kind of focus that made her feel like the only person in the world. You have questions, he said. Not an inquiry. A statement. Yeah. Starting with, what the hell is happening? Last night, 3 armed men attempted to rob this establishment. In the process, one of them pointed a weapon at my mother, Hyunhwa. You interposed yourself between the weapon and her. Place your own life at risk to protect a stranger. He paused. My mother is 81 years old. She survived the Korean War, immigration to a country that didn't want her, the death of my father when I was 12, and 40 years of building something from nothing. She is the most important person in my world. Gloria's hands clenched. I just did what anyone. No. Sang-hoon's interruption was gentle but absolute. Most people would have hidden behind the counter. Called for help. Hoped someone else would intervene. You didn't calculate odds. Didn't consider personal risk. You simply acted. He tilted his head slightly. That tells me something about who you are, Miss Jurgen. And what's that? That you're someone worth protecting. Someone worth honoring. Someone my family will now consider part of our obligations. The word obligations landed like a threat disguised as a gift. I don't want anything from you, Gloria said carefully. I don't need protection. I just need to get to my shift and... You misunderstand. Sang-hoon pulled out a black card from his inner jacket pocket. Matte finish, silver lettering. This is not a negotiation or a request. In Korean culture, there is a concept called weary, what you might call a debt of honor. When you save someone's life, you create a bond that cannot be ignored, cannot be dismissed, cannot be repaid with simple gratitude. He placed the card on the counter between them. This number reaches me directly. Anytime, any need, any threat. You call, and I answer. Additionally, you'll notice security outside your building. They'll maintain a discreet distance, but they'll be there. I don't want security. That's not your decision. The words could have been aggressive, but his tone remained calm. Matter of fact, as if he were explaining weather patterns rather than appending her entire life. Someone attempted to harm my mother in a place she considered safe. That means I failed in my primary responsibility. I don't fail twice, Miss Jurgen. Gloria stared at him, at this stranger in an expensive suit who'd mobilized an army because she'd done what felt like the only right thing to do. So what? I'm just supposed to accept that I've got the Korean Mafia watching my every move now. You're supposed to accept that you created a bond last night, whether you intended to or not, whether you understand it or not. He moved toward the door, then paused. My mother would like to thank you personally. She'll be here Thursday evening, 6 p.m. I hope you'll join us. And if I don't, Sang-hoon turned back, and for the first time, Gloria saw something soften in those sharp eyes. Not warmth, exactly, but something close to understanding. then I'll still protect you. The debt exists regardless of your acceptance. But it would honor my mother greatly to express her gratitude herself. She speaks little English, but I'll translate. And she very much wants you to know that what you did, the choice you made, it mattered. He left before Gloria could respond. Through the window, she watched him get into the center SUV. Within 2 minutes, the entire convoy had disappeared like it had never existed. Except for 2 SUVs, parked across the street. Windows tinted so dark she couldn't see inside. But she knew they were watching. Gloria picked up the black card, turned it over. Nothing but a phone number. No name, no business, no address. Just 10 digits and the weight of an obligation she'd never asked for. She thought about throwing it away, about calling the police, about pretending none of this had happened. Instead, she slipped it into her apron pocket, the same pocket where the $300 bills still waited, folded and warm from her body heat, and started prep for the breakfast shift. Because bills didn't care about mafia politics. Rent didn't wait for you to process life-changing decisions. The toast still needed buttering, the coffee still needed brewing, and the customers would arrive at 7 a.m. expecting the same mediocre service and overcooked eggs they'd been getting for 30 years. But all morning, as Gloria poured coffee and took orders and wiped down tables, she felt the weight of those 2 SUVs across the street. Protection, Sang-hoon had called it. Gloria had been around enough to know that protection and prison sometimes looked exactly the same. Gloria didn't go home after her shift. She walked, aimlessly at first, then with purpose, heading toward the one place in Los Angeles where she'd learned to think clearly. The steps of the public library on 5th Street. The library had been her refuge during the worst foster placements. The years when home meant sleeping on couches in overcrowded apartments where the adults screamed through walls thinner than cardboard. She discovered that libraries were warm in winter, cool in summer, and nobody asked questions if you sat reading for 6 hours straight. She sat on the steps now, watching the city move around her, trying to process what her life had become in less than 12 hours. The 2 SUVs had followed her. Discreet, maintaining a half-block distance, but unmistakable. Professional surveillance that wanted her to know she was being watched. Protection, Sang-hoon had said, but it felt like being tracked. Gloria pulled out her phone and stared at the black card she'd photographed before her shift. Just a phone number. 10 digits connected to a man who commanded an army, who'd given away $15,000 like it was pocket change, who'd promised to protect someone he'd never met because his mother said so. She should call. Should demand he back off. Leave her alone. Let her go back to being invisible. But Gloria had survived 32 years by recognizing power dynamics. And this wasn't the kind of power you pushed against. This was the kind you navigated carefully, like walking through a minefield where every step might be your last. Her phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. My mother would like to share tea with you. Thursday, 6 p.m. Pearl's Diner. No obligations. Just conversation. SHJ? Sang-hoon Jang. Even his text messages were formal. Gloria typed and deleted 3 different responses before settling on. I work Thursday nights. The response came immediately. Mr. Park has given you the evening off. Paid. He insists. Of course he had. Because saying no to the Korean Mafia wasn't really an option when you were a 63-year-old restaurant owner trying to survive in a neighborhood that chewed up small businesses. Gloria stared at her phone for a long moment, then typed, just tea, just conversation. Then you leave me alone. If that's what you want. We honor all requests. She didn't believe him. But what choice did she have? Wednesday passed in a blur of anxious anticipation. Gloria worked her regular shift, hyper-aware of the SUVs that rotated positions but never left. Customers started asking questions. Mr. Park deflected with lies about a film crew scouting locations. The neighborhood gossip network worked overtime, spinning theories about everything from immigration raids to celebrity sightings. Gloria said nothing, kept her head down, poured coffee, took orders, pretended her life wasn't unraveling. Thursday arrived with the weight of inevitability. At 5:45 p.m., the diner began to empty. Not gradually, all at once. The college kids studying in booth 3 suddenly remembered appointments. The construction workers who always stayed until 6:30 paid their checks early. Even the regulars who came every evening like clockwork found reasons to leave. By 5:50 p.m., Gloria was alone in the diner with Mr. Park, who'd retreated to the kitchen and very deliberately started cooking something that would take exactly an hour. At exactly 6 p.m., 3 black SUVs pulled up. This time, only 6 men exited. They formed a perimeter but didn't enter the diner. Professional, discreet, terrifying. Then Sang-hoon emerged from the center vehicle, and he wasn't alone. Kyung-la walked with the aid of a cane, but she moved with more strength and purpose than Gloria had seen Tuesday night. She wore traditional Korean hanbok, deep blue silk with intricate embroidery that probably cost more than Gloria's annual salary. Her white hair was pulled into an elegant bun. Silver earrings caught the evening light. And when she entered the diner, she carried herself like royalty entering a throne room. Sang-hoon held the door with a gentleness that seemed at odds with everything else about him. He guided his mother to booth 7, her usual seat, with the kind of careful attention that spoke of deep love rather than mere obligation. Kyung said something in Korean. Sang-hoon translated, "My mother asks if you would join us." Gloria looked at the empty diner, at the 6 men standing guard outside, at Mr. Park, who was very deliberately not watching from the kitchen. She thought about refusing, about maintaining some boundary, some illusion of control over her own life. But something in Kyung's eyes stopped her. Not intimidation, not command. Request. Genuine, humble request from an old woman who wanted to say thank you. Gloria sat across from Kyung and Sang-hoon. Up close, Kyung's face was a map of experiences Gloria couldn't imagine. Wrinkles that spoke of laughter and grief in equal measure. Age spots on hands that had clearly worked hard for decades. Eyes that held the particular sharpness of someone who'd survived things that killed weaker people. Kyung spoke, her voice soft but carrying weight that made the air in the diner feel heavier. Sang-hoon translated with the ease of someone who'd done this countless times. "My mother says that Tuesday night, when you stepped between her and the gun, you didn't hesitate. You didn't think. You simply acted with pure instinct to protect a stranger. She wants to know why." Gloria considered lying, considered giving some noble answer about doing the right thing, about how all lives have value, about duty to fellow humans. But something about Kyung's direct gaze demanded honesty. Brutal honesty. "I don't know," Gloria admitted, her voice quieter than she'd intended. "I saw the gun. I saw your mother. I saw that kid's finger on the trigger. And I couldn't watch someone get hurt when I could stop it, even if stopping it meant." She didn't finish. Didn't need to. Kyung nodded slowly as Sang-hoon translated Gloria's words. Then she reached across the table and took both of Gloria's hands in hers. Her skin was thin as paper but warm. Strong. The hands of someone who'd built something from nothing. When she spoke again, her voice cracked with emotion even before Sang-hoon translated. "My mother says you remind her of someone. Someone she lost 40 years ago. Someone she's been searching for ever since." Gloria's heart started beating faster for reasons she couldn't name. "Who?" Kyung pulled a photograph from her purse. Old. Faded. Protected in plastic like a holy relic. Handled so many times the edges had worn soft. She laid it on the table between them with trembling hands. Gloria stared. The photo showed a young Korean woman. Kyung, decades younger, maybe in her 40s, holding an infant. But not a Korean infant. A black infant. The woman's expression held a mixture of joy and desperation and guilt that made Gloria's throat tight. Sang-hoon spoke, his voice gentler than Gloria had heard from him. "In 1984, my mother worked as a live-in housekeeper for a family in Hancock Park. The Wellingtons. Wealthy. Connected. Old Los Angeles money. The kind who thought their wealth made them untouchable." He paused, gathering himself. "The family's daughter got pregnant at 18. The father was a black jazz musician the family considered beneath them. When the baby was born, the Wellingtons wanted it gone. Adoption through proper channels would create records, questions, complications. So they paid my mother $50,000, more money than she'd ever seen, to make the child disappear." Kyung spoke, and Sang-hoon continued translating, his voice thick with emotion. "My mother took the money. But she didn't abandon the child. She brought the baby to a woman she trusted, a black woman named Dorothy Jorgen who ran an unlicensed childcare service in South Central. She paid Dorothy $30,000 to ensure the child would be cared for, protected, given a chance at life. The name hit Gloria like a physical blow. Dorothy Jorgen, the name on Gloria's birth certificate in the space where it said mother. The woman who'd raised her for the first 6 years of her life before dying suddenly, leaving Gloria to the foster care system that would chew her up and spit her out over the next 12 years. Dorothy Jorgen, who Gloria barely remembered, who existed in her memory as fragments, a voice singing hymns while cooking, the smell of cocoa butter and vanilla, strong hands braiding hair, warmth and safety that ended when Gloria was 6 and strangers came to take her away. No, Gloria whispered. But even as she said it, she knew. Somehow she knew. Kyung spoke rapidly in Korean, tears tracking down her wrinkled cheeks. Sang-hoon's voice cracked as he translated. My mother kept a photograph, the only proof of what she'd done. And she's been searching for that child ever since, trying to find out if Dorothy kept her word, if the money made a difference, if the baby survived and had a good life. For 40 years, she's searched, hired private investigators, followed every lead, visited every black woman named Jorgen in Los Angeles County. Kyung pulled out a small metal box from her purse. Inside were documents, yellowed with age but preserved with obsessive care. A hospital birth record from August 15, 1992. Mother, Sarah Catherine Wellington. Father, unknown. Attending nurse, K-Law. And a hospital baby bracelet. Tiny, pink, with a name written in faded ink. Baby Girl Wellington. My mother saved this, Sang-hoon translated, his voice barely above a whisper. The only proof the child existed before the Wellingtons erased every record. She's kept it for 40 years, waiting to return it to its owner. Gloria stared at the tiny bracelet. It would fit around her thumb now, if that. She picked it up with shaking hands, and something in her chest cracked open, not breaking, but opening. Like a door that had been locked her entire life suddenly had a key. How old are you? Sang-hoon asked gently. 32. Gloria's voice sounded like it was coming from very far away. And Dorothy Jorgen? My birth certificate says she's my mother. But there are no baby pictures, no family stories, no cousins or grandparents or any extended family. She died when I was 6. Heart attack, they said. After that, it was just foster care. 7 different families. None of them kept me. Her voice broke. I've never known where I came from, who I was before Dorothy. The social workers said she probably found me abandoned somewhere, took me in without going through proper channels. I've spent my whole life being nobody, coming from nowhere. Kyung reached across the table and touched Gloria's face with a gentleness that made Gloria's carefully constructed walls start to crumble. She spoke in English for the first time, heavily accented but clear. Not nobody. My child. Dorothy's child. Loved. Searched for. Found. The words broke something in Gloria. Tears she'd been holding back for years, decades, finally spilled over. She sat in booth 7 of Pearl's diner, crying in front of strangers who claimed to have been searching for her, holding a hospital bracelet that might be the only proof she'd ever existed to the people who made her. I need to know for certain. Gloria managed through tears. I need proof. Sang-hoon nodded. DNA test. We can arrange it tonight. My family has connections with private labs that can fast-track results. 72 hours, maximum. Why? Gloria looked at Kyung, at the old woman watching her with such naked hope it hurt to witness. Why does it matter to you after all these years? Kyung spoke, and Sang-hoon translated, his own voice thick with emotion. Because my mother carried the guilt of that choice for 40 years. She took money to abandon a child. Even though she found you a home, even though she tried to do right, she's lived with the shame of it. She believes she failed you. Failed Dorothy. Failed the child she should have protected better. He paused. Finding you, knowing you survived, being able to tell you the truth, it's the only way she can make peace before she dies. The words landed like stones. Are you dying? Gloria asked directly, looking at Kyung. Kyung smiled sadly and spoke. Sang-hoon hesitated before translating. She says we're all dying. She just happens to know her timeline. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. She refused aggressive treatment. At 81, she says she's lived a full life. But not before she finds answers. Not before she knows what happened to the baby she gave away. Gloria felt something shift in her chest. This wasn't just about her. This was about an old woman trying to make peace with a choice she'd made when she was desperate and alone. A choice that had haunted her for 4 decades. If the test is positive, Gloria said slowly, if I really am that baby, what then? Sang-hoon leaned forward. Then your family. Not just under obligation of the debt you created by saving my mother. Actual family. The child she's mourned not knowing for 40 years. He paused. And in our world, family means everything. Gloria looked around the diner. At the life she'd built from scraps and stubbornness. At the future she'd never dared imagine because imagining hurt too much when you'd been abandoned as many times as she had. 72 hours, she said finally. We do the test. We get the results. And then we figure out what's true and what that means. Kyung reached across the table and took Gloria's hands again. Squeezed them with surprising strength. Spoke in Korean. Sang-hoon's voice was soft. My mother says she already knows. A mother always knows her child. DNA will only confirm what her heart has known since Tuesday night when you stepped in front of that gun. You are hers. You've always been hers. And she's never stopped looking. And somehow, despite every abandonment, despite every foster family that sent her back, despite 32 years of being nobody from nowhere, Gloria believed her. So here's what I need you to understand. Gloria thinks she's about to get answers about where she came from. But what she doesn't know is that the Wellington family has spent 40 years making sure those answers stay buried. And they have resources, political connections, money, power, that make the Korean Mafia look like amateurs. That DNA test, it's about to trigger a war Gloria never asked for. And the question isn't whether she'll survive it. The question is whether the person she becomes on the other side will still recognize herself. Stay locked in. You're not ready for what happens next. The DNA test took 15 minutes. A cotton swab against the inside of Gloria's cheek, another against Kyung's. Samples sealed in sterile containers by a lab technician who arrived at the diner at 8 p.m. in an unmarked van, accompanied by 2 of Sang-hoon's security team. The technician was a middle-aged Korean woman who spoke perfect English but avoided eye contact with everyone except Sang-hoon. She worked with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times, labeling vials with codes instead of names, documenting chain of custody with meticulous precision. Results in 72 hours, she said, packing the samples into a temperature-controlled case. We're running full mitochondrial DNA sequence plus standard autosomal markers. If there's a maternal relationship, we'll know definitively. After she left, Gloria sat alone in her apartment above the diner, staring at the small metal box Kyung had left with her. The hospital bracelet, the birth certificate, the photograph of a young Korean woman holding a black baby with an expression that said she knew she was doing something that would haunt her forever. Gloria traced the faded ink on the bracelet. Baby girl Wellington. She'd spent 32 years being Gloria Jorgen, a name that came from a woman who died when Gloria was too young to understand what death meant. She'd spent her whole life assuming Dorothy had found her abandoned somewhere, taken her in out of the goodness of her heart. But what if Dorothy had been paid? What if Gloria wasn't rescued, just purchased? The thought made her stomach twist. Her phone rang at 9:47 p.m. Unknown number. Not Sang-hoon's. She'd saved his contact after he'd insisted she program it in case of emergency. Gloria stared at the screen. Every instinct screamed not to answer. But curiosity, or maybe just exhaustion from trying to control an increasingly uncontrollable situation, made her accept the call. Gloria Jorgen? Male voice. American accent. Professional. The kind of voice you heard in corporate boardrooms and courtrooms. Who's asking? My name is Detective Raymond Pierce, LAPD. I'm investigating a cold case from 1992, and your name came up in connection with a search we're running. I'd like to ask you some questions. Gloria's grip tightened on the phone. What kind of cold case? I'd rather discuss it in person. Are you available tomorrow morning? Say, 10 a.m. at the diner where you work. Every alarm bell Gloria had developed in 32 years of survival started screaming. How did you get this number? It's listed with your employer. Pearl's Diner, correct? Mr. Park doesn't give out employee numbers. It's against his policy. A pause. Brief but telling. Miss Jurgen, I assure you this is official police business. I just have some questions about your background, your connection to a woman named Dorothy Jurgen. Nothing to be concerned about. The mention of Dorothy's name felt like a trap springing. Then you can email me your badge number and case details. I'll decide if I want to talk after I verify you're actually a cop. Silence. Longer this time. When the voice came back, it had lost its professional warmth. That won't be necessary. I'll be in touch. The line went dead. Gloria immediately dialed Sang-hoon. He answered before the first ring finished. Someone just called claiming to be LAPD. Said they're investigating a 1992 cold case with Dorothy Jurgen's name attached. Wanted to meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. What did you tell them? To email credentials. They hung up. Gloria paused. That wasn't a real cop, was it? No. Sang-hoon's voice had gone cold. Not angry, but focused. The voice of someone shifting into tactical mode. What number did they call from? Gloria read it off. She heard typing in the background, rapid and purposeful. Burner phone. Activated 4 hours ago, probably right after the lab technician left the diner. Location ping puts the last call in Hancock Park. More typing. The Wellington family still lives there. Same house. Same address where the birth happened in 1992. Gloria's stomach dropped. You think they know? About the DNA test. I think someone's been watching my mother for a very long time, waiting to see if this secret would surface. Your sudden connection to her triggered attention. The DNA test being processed triggered panic. He paused. Someone leaked information. The lab tech, possibly. Or someone saw the collection and reported it. What do I do? Pack a bag. You're not safe there. Excuse me. Gloria stood up, adrenaline flooding her system. I'm not leaving my home because some fake cop made a phone call. Gloria. The use of her first name stopped her. He'd been formal until now. Miss Jurgen. Always proper. Always maintaining distance. The intimacy of her first name felt significant. The Wellington family has connections that go back 3 generations. Police. Judges. District attorneys. People who've made careers out of protecting old money secrets. He continued, voice grave. If they know you might be the child from 1984, if they know there's DNA evidence being processed that could prove an illegal adoption happened, they'll move to eliminate the threat. And right now, you're the threat. I'm not a threat. I'm a waitress who makes $3 an hour plus tips. You're proof of a crime. Illegal adoption. Falsified records. Potentially coercion or human trafficking, depending on how a prosecutor wanted to frame it. Sang-hoon's voice was patient but firm. If the truth comes out, it doesn't just embarrass the family. It exposes them to legal consequences that could unravel 40 years of carefully constructed legitimacy. So what, they'd kill me. Sarah Wellington, the woman who gave birth to you, married into California politics. Her husband is State Senator Richard Wellington. Their son, Thomas Wellington Moss, is running for Congress in the next election. He's the favorite, polling 20 points ahead. The implications settled over Gloria like a weighted blanket. A secret daughter from 40 years ago. Destroys all of it. The marriage was built on a lie. The senator's entire family values platform becomes a joke. His son's campaign implodes. We're talking about the end of a political dynasty that's taken 2 generations to build. Gloria sat down heavily on her couch. What do they want? To make you go away. Permanently, if necessary. But they'll try softer approaches first. Money. Threats. Character assassination. Only if those fail do they escalate to more permanent solutions. Jesus Christ. Gloria put her head in her hands. All I did was step in front of a gun to protect an old lady. And that act of kindness just made you the most dangerous person in California to a family with billions of dollars and unlimited political connections. Sang-hoon's voice softened. I'm sending a car. 20 minutes. Pack light. Clothes for a week. Toiletries. Anything you can't replace. We have a safe house in Pasadena. Private. Secure. You'll have your own space, and we'll know immediately if anyone tries to approach. For how long? Until the DNA results come back, and we know what we're actually dealing with. 72 hours, maximum. Then we make decisions based on facts instead of fear. Gloria looked around her tiny studio. Everything she owned fit in 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. It wasn't much, but it was hers. The first place since foster care where she'd lived for more than 18 months without being evicted or forced out. And now she had to leave it because powerful people wanted her erased. What about Mr. Park? What about the diner? Already handled. He's closing for the rest of the week. Paid vacation. I've covered his lost revenue plus 20%. He understands there's danger. I haven't told him details, just enough that he knows to be cautious. You've got this all figured out, don't you? I've spent 20 years protecting my family from people who want to destroy us. This is what I do. He paused. Pack warm clothes. Pasadena gets cold at night. After he hung up, Gloria moved through her apartment on autopilot. 2 suitcases. One with clothes, one with books and the few photos she had of Dorothy, blurry and faded but precious. She included the metal box with the hospital bracelet and birth certificate. Left a note for Mr. Park thanking him and promising to explain everything when she could. She was zipping the second suitcase when her phone rang again. Different number. Also unknown. Gloria answered. If this is another fake detective, save your breath. Miss Jurgen, my name is Helen Winters. I'm an attorney with Wellington and Associates. I represent the Wellington family. The voice was female, polished, with the kind of confidence that came from winning more cases than you lost. I understand you've become entangled in a situation regarding a child born in 1984. We'd like to offer you a settlement to avoid any unpleasantness. Gloria's blood went cold. What kind of settlement? $500,000. Immediate wire transfer to an account of your choosing. In exchange, you sign a comprehensive non-disclosure agreement and cease all contact with the Jang family and any investigations related to the 1984 birth. $500,000. Gloria had never seen that much money. Couldn't conceive of it. That was enough to disappear, start over, go to college, buy a house, never work another double shift at a diner where drunk customers grabbed her ass and left 50-cent tips on $20 checks. That was freedom. And if I refuse? Gloria heard herself ask. Then we'll be forced to pursue legal remedies. Helen's voice remained pleasant, professional, terrifying in its calm. False claims of paternity are serious matters, Miss Jurgen. DNA tests can be challenged. Results can be complicated by procedural errors. Expert witnesses can be found who'll testify that chain of custody was compromised. She paused, letting the threat settle. We'd hate to see you dragged through litigation you can't afford, especially given your background. The subtle threat wasn't subtle at all. They'd looked into her, knew about her record. Nothing serious, just the kind of low-level charges that pile up when you're young and black and in the wrong neighborhood, when police decide to sweep the streets. Charges that had been dropped or dismissed, but still showed up in background checks. Still created narratives about credibility and character. I need to think about it, Gloria said. You have 24 hours. After that, our offer decreases significantly. And Miss Jurgen? Helen's voice dropped, losing its professional veneer. The Wellington family has been part of California's foundation for 3 generations. We protect our legacy. I suggest you consider very carefully whether becoming an obstacle to that legacy is a wise choice. The line went dead. Gloria sat on her packed suitcases, phone still pressed to her ear, trying to process what had just happened. In the span of 2 hours, she'd been offered $500,000 and threatened with legal destruction. Both by the same people. Both for the same reason, making her disappear. When Sang-hoon's car arrived, sleek, black, windows tinted so dark she couldn't see the driver, Gloria descended the stairs with her 2 suitcases and a bone-deep certainty that her life would never be simple again. Sang-hoon himself was waiting beside the vehicle. He took her bags without comment, loaded them into the trunk with efficient movements. They called, Gloria said. The Wellingtons. Well, their lawyer. Offered me $500,000 to sign an NDA and disappear. Sang-hoon went very still. What did you tell them? That I needed to think about it. That I had 24 hours. Gloria looked at him. Should I take it? Is that the smart play? Take the money, sign the papers, go back to being invisible. Sang-hoon studied her face for a long moment. Do you want my honest answer? Yes. Taking the money would be the safest choice. The easiest choice. You'd be set for life financially. Could start over anywhere. The Wellingtons would leave you alone, and you'd never have to know the truth about where you came from or who you might have been. He paused. But you'd spend the rest of your life wondering. And my mother would die not knowing if the child she saved survived. Not knowing if 40 years of searching meant anything. Gloria felt tears threatening. I don't know what to do. Then don't decide tonight. Come to the safe house. Rest. Let the DNA results come back. Make decisions based on facts instead of fear and offers designed to exploit your desperation. He opened the car door. You don't have to fight this alone, Gloria. Not anymore. Gloria looked back at her apartment above Pearl's diner, at the neon sign flickering in the night. Open 24 hours, except tonight it was dark because Mr. Park had closed for the first time in 30 years. She thought about Dorothy Jurgen, about the woman who'd raised her for 6 years, who'd died without ever explaining where Gloria really came from. About Kyung La, who'd spent 40 years searching for a baby she'd given away out of desperation and guilt. About powerful people who thought money could erase inconvenient truths. Gloria got in the car. Let's go. As they pulled away from the only home she'd known for 6 years, Gloria watched the 2 SUVs that had been watching her join the convoy. Protection, Sang-hoon called it. For the first time, Gloria was starting to believe that maybe, just maybe, it actually was. The safe house sat in a quiet Pasadena neighborhood where houses started at $3 million and residents practiced the art of aggressive privacy. High walls, automated gates, security cameras disguised as decorative lighting. The kind of place where neighbors didn't ask questions because asking questions implied you cared about anything beyond your own property values. Gloria's entire studio apartment could have fit in the safe house's foyer. Sang-hoon gave her a brief tour, his voice professional. Kitchens fully stocked. Enough food for a month. 3 bedrooms, you can choose whichever you prefer. Libraries on the 2nd floor if you need quiet space. Gym in the basement. Panic room disguised as a walk-in closet in the master bedroom. Thumbprint access, I'll program yours before I leave. He moved through the space with the familiarity of someone who'd memorized every detail. Security cameras cover every angle, both interior and exterior. 6 guards rotate in 12-hour shifts. They're family, people I've known for years. You can trust them. This is where you live. Gloria asked, setting her suitcases in the master bedroom because it had a window overlooking an actual garden instead of a dumpster alley. No, I have a penthouse downtown. This is for family who need discretion. He checked the window locks out of habit, even though Gloria was certain they'd been checked an hour ago. My mother stayed here when she was recovering from surgery 2 years ago. It's the most secure location we have outside of the primary compound. Gloria sat on the bed, California King, probably cost more than her car. Why are you doing this? The real reason. Not the debt of honor explanation. Not the cultural obligation. Why does a man who runs a Korean crime organization care this much about a black waitress from South Central? Sang-hoon was quiet for a long moment. He moved to the chair by the window, sat down, and for the first time since Gloria met him, the polished veneer cracked just slightly. Do you know what it's like to watch your mother carry guilt for 40 years? His voice was soft, vulnerable. To see her aging, getting sick, and know she's haunted by a choice she made when she was desperate and alone? Gloria thought about Dorothy, about the foster homes, about being sent back 7 times because she didn't fit in, or had issues, or was hard to connect with. Yeah, she said quietly. I know what guilt looks like. I know what it does to people. My mother worked 16-hour days to build what we have. Never remarried after my father died. Poured everything into making our family untouchable, making sure I'd never be vulnerable the way she was when she first came to America. He looked out the window at the garden lit by subtle landscape lighting. And the whole time, she was searching for you. Hiring private investigators. Following dead ends. Visiting every black woman named Jurgen in 3 counties. She did that. For 40 years. Birthdays, holidays, she'd tell me she was visiting friends or attending community events. I found out 5 years ago she was actually searching for the baby she'd given to Dorothy Jurgen. The child she'd taken money to abandon but couldn't actually let go. Sang-hoon turned back to Gloria. When she saw you Tuesday night, when you stepped between her and that gun without hesitation, she called me at midnight crying. Said she'd seen her own reflection. Someone who protects others even when it costs them everything. Someone who acts without calculating personal benefit. Gloria felt her throat tighten. I'm not a hero. I'm just someone who couldn't watch an old woman get shot. That's what heroes say. He stood, moved toward the door. The refrigerator has fresh food. Bathrooms stocked with toiletries. If you need anything at all, there's an intercom system. Press the red button, and someone responds immediately. Sang-hoon. Gloria's use of his first name stopped him at the threshold. What if the DNA test comes back negative? What if I'm not the baby from that photograph? His expression softened. Then you're still the woman who saved my mother's life. Still someone worth protecting. Still family by choice if not by blood. He paused. My mother taught me that family isn't just biology. It's who shows up when things are hard. Who sacrifices without expecting return. You did that. The DNA is just confirmation of what we already know. After he left, Gloria explored the safe house like a ghost moving through someone else's dream. The kitchen had a refrigerator bigger than her entire apartment's kitchenette, stocked with fresh vegetables and meats and cheeses she couldn't pronounce. The library held books in English, Korean, and languages she didn't recognize, floor-to-ceiling shelves organized with the precision of someone who actually read them. She ended up in the master bedroom's attached bathroom, all marble and heated floors and a shower with 6 different heads. There was a robe hanging on the back of the door. Thick, white, hotel quality. Gloria ran her fingers over the fabric, then looked at herself in the mirror. Same face she'd seen for 32 years. Dark skin that tanned instead of burning. Hair she'd learned to manage through YouTube tutorials and trial and error. Eyes that had seen too much rejection to trust easily. But maybe, she was looking at someone else too. Someone who'd been born Sarah Wellington's daughter and became Kyung La's responsibility and ended up Dorothy Jorgen's child. Someone who'd spent 32 years being nobody and might be about to become somebody whether she wanted to or not. Gloria's phone buzzed. Text from Sang-hoon. Guard change happening at midnight. You'll hear movement outside. Don't be alarmed. You're safe. She typed back. Thank you. For everything. His response came immediately. Sleep well, Gloria. Tomorrow we start fighting back. But Gloria didn't sleep. She lay in a bed that cost more than 6 months of her rent, staring at the ceiling, thinking about $500,000 in DNA tests and powerful people who wanted her erased. At 2:37 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. Again. Gloria stared at it, debating, then answered. If this is another threat, I'm recording this call. Miss Jorgen, this is Helen Winters again. I'm calling to. It's almost 3 in the morning. I'm calling to increase our offer. Helen's voice held none of its earlier pleasantness. This was business. Pure business. $750,000. Same terms. You have 12 hours to decide. You just gave me 24 hours 2 hours ago. Circumstances have changed. We've become aware that you're currently residing in a property owned by the Jang family. That complicates matters. The longer you remain under their influence, the harder it becomes to resolve this situation cleanly. Gloria sat up in bed. How did you know where I am? We have resources, Miss Jorgen. Extensive resources. Which is why I'm urging you to seriously consider our offer. $750,000. Immediate wire transfer. You sign the agreement. You walk away. You never think about the Wellingtons or the Jang family again. And if I refuse? Helen's voice went cold. Then we stop offering carrots and start wielding sticks. Your employment history has some interesting gaps. Your foster care records contain allegations of behavioral issues. Your credit score is abysmal. And there's that arrest from when you were 19. Petty theft, charges dropped, but the arrest record remains. She paused. We can make you look like an opportunistic con artist trying to extort a prominent family. We can make your life so legally complicated that you'll be drowning in depositions and court appearances for the next 5 years. We can make sure no one in Los Angeles will hire you, house you, or believe a word you say. You're threatening me. I'm explaining the consequences. There's a difference. Helen's voice shifted back to professional. $750,000, Miss Jurgen. 12 hours. After that, the offer disappears and the consequences begin. Choose wisely. The call disconnected. Gloria sat in the dark bedroom, hands shaking, and for the first time since Tuesday night, she felt genuinely afraid. Not of guns or robbers or physical violence, but of the kind of power that could destroy your life with phone calls and legal documents and carefully crafted narratives that turned victims into villains. She called Sang-hoon. Didn't care that it was 2:45 a.m. He answered immediately. What happened? They called again. Increased the offer to $750,000. Said I have 12 hours. Said if I refuse, they'll destroy my reputation and bury me in legal hell. Gloria's voice shook. How did they know I'm here? How did they find me? Someone's tracking either your phone or my security team. Possibly both. She heard movement in the background. Sang-hoon getting out of bed, getting dressed. I'm coming over. 20 minutes. Don't answer any more calls from unknown numbers. Sang-hoon, maybe I should just take the money. This is insane. I don't even know if I'm actually connected to these people. Why am I fighting a war I didn't start over a question I don't even have an answer to yet? Because they're scared. His voice was firm. Certain. Scared people don't increase offers. Scared people don't make threats. They're doing both, which means they know something we don't. Which means the DNA test probably proves exactly what my mother suspects. Or it proves nothing, and they're just being cautious. No. If the test was going to come back negative, they'd wait for the results and then make you look foolish. The fact that they're escalating before the results come back means someone leaked preliminary information. Means they know what's coming. Gloria heard what he wasn't saying. You're Sarah Wellington's daughter. The DNA is about to prove it. And they're terrified. 20 minutes, Sang-hoon repeated. We need to talk strategy. Because in 12 hours, when you refuse their offer, this gets ugly. And I need you prepared for ugly. After he hung up, Gloria sat in the expensive bedroom of a safe house she'd never imagined existing, holding a phone that kept delivering threats disguised as opportunities, thinking about a woman named Dorothy who died without explaining the truth. And she made a decision. She wasn't taking the money. She wasn't signing the NDA. She was going to find out the truth, even if the truth destroyed her. Because 32 years of being nobody was enough. Even if becoming somebody meant war. Here's what the Wellingtons don't understand. You can't threaten someone who spent their entire life with nothing to lose. Gloria's been abandoned, rejected, and erased so many times that their legal threats are just Tuesday. But what they're about to learn is that she's not alone anymore. And Sang-hoon Jang didn't build an empire by backing down when rich people got nervous. In 12 hours, this stops being a negotiation and becomes a war. And wars fought by people with everything to lose against people with nothing left to fear? Those wars never end the way the powerful expect. Don't move. You're about to witness what happens when the invisible finally gets seen. Sang-hoon arrived in 18 minutes. Gloria heard the gate open, watched from the bedroom window as his car pulled into the circular driveway. He was alone. No security detail, no driver. Just him in dark jeans and a black t-shirt, looking more human than she'd ever seen him. She met him at the door. He had coffee, 2 large cups from a 24-hour Korean cafe in Koreatown. You look like you haven't slept, he said, handing her one. Neither have you. They sat in the library because Gloria was starting to associate that room with clarity. Sang-hoon settled into a leather chair that had probably cost more than her car. Gloria curled up on the matching sofa, coffee warming her hands. Tell me everything about the call, he said. Gloria recounted it word for word. Sang-hoon listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then, they're panicking. Real panic, not calculated strategy. $750,000 is serious money, but for a family like the Wellingtons, it's a rounding error. The fact that they're offering it means they're trying to solve this quickly before it spirals. Spirals how? DNA results come back positive. You establish a biological connection to Sarah Wellington. That opens questions. How did a black baby born to a white mother end up with a Korean housekeeper? What happened to adoption records? Why was the birth never registered properly? Each question leads to another, and suddenly you're looking at illegal adoption, falsified documents, possibly human trafficking charges. Sang-hoon leaned forward. A scandal like that doesn't just embarrass the family. It destroys them. Senator Wellington's career ends. His son's congressional campaign implodes. Every piece of legislation Wellington ever supported gets re-examined through the lens of this man's family trafficked a baby. It's political annihilation. So they'd rather pay me to disappear. They'd rather pay you to not exist. There's a difference. He pulled out his phone, showed her a series of photos. I had my team do research. This is Sarah Wellington, now Sarah Wellington Ross. Lives in Santa Barbara. Sits on 3 nonprofit boards. Hosts fundraisers for her stepson's campaign. The woman in the photos was in her early 60s, blonde, well-preserved in the way that money allows. She looked happy in the pictures, fulfilled, like someone who'd never spent 40 years wondering about a baby she'd given up. This is State Senator Richard Wellington. Sang-hoon swiped to show a silver-haired man in expensive suits shaking hands with governors and mayors. Married Sarah 6 months after your birth. Political power couple. He's been in the state senate for 24 years. His son from a previous marriage, Thomas Wellington Ross, is the current favorite in the 14th congressional district race. More photos. A handsome man in his 30s, all-American smile and practiced charisma, posing with constituents and cutting ribbons and kissing babies. Your half-brother, Sang-hoon said quietly. If the DNA proves what we think it proves. The words landed like stones. Half-brother. Family she'd never known. People who'd spent 40 years living privileged lives while she bounced through foster care and worked minimum-wage jobs and learned to make herself invisible. They don't deserve to just pay their way out of this, Gloria said, surprised by the anger in her own voice. No, they don't. But that's your choice, not mine. Sang-hoon's voice was gentle. My obligation is to protect you and honor my mother's debt. What you do with the truth once we have it, that's your decision. What would you do? If you were me, I'd burn them to the ground. No hesitation. But I was raised in a world where reputation is currency and exposing enemies is survival. You were raised differently. Your choice might be different. Gloria sipped her coffee, thinking, what if I refuse the money but agree not to go public? What if I just want the truth for myself? Then they still see you as a threat. Because threats can change their minds. Threats can be exposed later. The only way they feel safe is if you're completely neutralized, either paid off so thoroughly that you'd never risk losing the money, or destroyed so completely that no one would believe you if you tried to speak. So I take the money, or they destroy me. Unless we destroy them first. The words hung in the air. Gloria looked at Sang-hoon. This man who commanded an organization most people didn't know existed, who'd mobilized an army for his mother, who was offering to go to war with one of California's most powerful families for a waitress he'd met 4 days ago. Why? Gloria asked. Really why? You've explained the debt, the obligation, the cultural reasons. But there's something else. I can see it. What is it? Sang-hoon was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. When I was 12, my father died. Aneurysm. No warning. He was healthy one day, dead the next. My mother was destroyed. She'd lost everything in Korea. Family, home, any sense of stability. My father was her anchor in America. When he died, she had nothing. He stared into his coffee. She could have given up. Could have sent me back to Korea to be raised by relatives. Could have walked away from the small business my father had started. Instead, she worked. Built something from nothing. Made sure I'd never be vulnerable the way she was. But in doing that, Gloria said softly, understanding, she became hard. Closed off. Exactly. She survived by not letting anyone close enough to hurt her. By making every relationship transactional. By teaching me that power was the only thing that mattered. He looked up at Gloria. For 40 years, I watched her be lonely. Successful, feared, respected, but lonely. Because she'd forgotten how to connect with people without calculating what they owed or what she could extract. Until Tuesday night. Until you stepped in front of that gun without thinking, without calculating, without expecting anything in return. Just pure instinct to protect someone weaker. Sang-hoon's voice cracked slightly. You reminded her that goodness still exists. that people can act out of kindness instead of self-interest. For 40 years, she'd been searching for that baby, trying to prove to herself that one act of kindness she'd shown, giving you to Dorothy instead of abandoning you, had mattered. And then you appeared and proved that kindness still lives in the world. Gloria felt tears threatening. I'm not that good. You don't know me. I've done things I'm not proud of. Made choices. We've all made choices we regret. That doesn't erase the choice you made Tuesday night. Sang-hoon stood, moved to the window. My mother's dying, Gloria. 6 months, maybe less. And before she dies, she wants to know that the baby she saved grew up to be someone who makes the world better. You're that proof. DNA doesn't matter. You're already what she's been searching for. Silence settled over the library. Outside, the first hints of dawn were touching the sky. The DNA results come back in 48 hours, Gloria said finally. What do we do until then? We prepare. We gather evidence. We build a case so airtight that even if they try to destroy you, the truth is already out there, already documented, already impossible to bury. And when they come at me legally, then they discover that attacking someone under Jang family protection is significantly more expensive than they calculated. Sang-hoon turned back to her, and his expression was cold. The warmth from moments ago vanished, replaced by the calculating strategist who'd built an empire. I'm very good at making powerful people regret their decisions, Gloria. It's literally what I've spent 20 years perfecting. At 7:30 a.m., Gloria's phone rang. Unknown number. She looked at Sang-hoon, who nodded. She answered the speaker. Gloria Jurgen. Miss Jurgen, this is Helen Winters. I'm calling to confirm that you've made your decision regarding our offer. I have 12 hours. It's been 5. Circumstances have changed again. We're prepared to offer $1 million. Final offer. You have 1 hour to accept. $1 million. The number was so absurd Gloria almost laughed. Why the increase? She asked. Because we've received preliminary information suggesting the DNA test may confirm a biological connection. We'd prefer to resolve this before official results create complications. Helen's voice was crisp, professional. $1 million, Miss Jurgen. Tax-free, immediate wire transfer. You sign the agreement. We destroy all samples and records, and this situation disappears. You can't destroy the samples. They're already being processed. We have connections at the laboratory. The samples can experience procedural errors, contamination, chain of custody issues. Results can be delayed indefinitely pending investigation. Helen paused. $1 million. 1 hour. This is your last chance to walk away from this intact. Sang-hoon muted the phone. Say yes. Gloria stared at him. What? Say yes. Tell them you'll take the money. Set up a meeting to sign the documents. We need them to believe they've won. Gloria unmuted. I want to see the agreement first. And I want the money transferred before I sign anything. That's not how this works. That's exactly how this works. You want me to sign away my rights. You pay me first. Otherwise, how do I know you won't just destroy me after I've given you what you want? Helen was quiet for a moment. Fine. We can arrange a meeting this afternoon. 3 p.m. Neutral location. You, me, and a notary. Money transfers when you sign. I'm bringing someone with me. My attorney. You don't have an attorney. I do now. 3 p.m. Text me the location. Gloria hung up. Sang-hoon was smiling. Not warmly, but with the satisfaction of a chess player who'd just forced his opponent into a corner. You're learning. What's the plan? We go to the meeting. We record everything they say. We get them to explain exactly why they're paying you. On record, in their own words. Then we use that recording to ensure they never threaten you again. They'll never admit to illegal adoption or falsified records. They don't have to. All they have to do is admit they're paying you to stay quiet about Sarah Wellington's 1992 pregnancy. That's enough to create questions. And questions are what destroys powerful families. Sang-hoon pulled out his phone. I'm calling my attorney. He'll accompany you to the meeting as your legal representation. He's been with my family for 20 years. He knows how to handle people like the Wellingtons. And what do? You listen. You don't sign anything. And you let them talk themselves into a corner. He paused. And Gloria? When they offer you that $1 million, when they show you the wire transfer confirmation and push the agreement across the table, and tell you all your problems will disappear if you just sign. Remember that every signature has a price, and some prices can't be measured in money. At noon, Sang-hoon's attorney arrived. His name was James Chun, second-generation Korean-American, Harvard Law, 52 years old and sharp as broken glass. "Miss Jorgen," he said, shaking her hand with a grip that was firm but not aggressive. "I've been briefed on the situation. I'll be representing you at this afternoon's meeting. My role is to review any documents before you sign, to ensure your interests are protected, and to serve as a witness to everything that's said. What if they refuse to let you in? They won't. Bringing legal representation to a contract signing is standard practice. If they object, it suggests the contract isn't in your best interest, which we'll note for the record." James smiled. "I've been doing this for 28 years. Trust me, I've dealt with families far more powerful and significantly more creative than the Wellingtons." At 2:30 p.m., a text arrived with the meeting location, a private conference room at a law office in Century City. High-rise building, expensive address, the kind of place where hourly rates started at 4 figures. They took 2 cars, Sang-hoon's security in one, Gloria and James in the other. As they drove through Los Angeles traffic, James prepped her. "Don't volunteer information. Answer questions directly and minimally. If I touch your arm, stop talking immediately. If they ask you to sign something, slide it to me first. And remember, you're not here to make friends or seem agreeable. You're here to protect yourself. What if they get aggressive? Then I get more aggressive. That's literally what you're paying me for. I'm not paying you anything." James smiled. "The Jang family retains me on annual contract. Consider this part of the service." At exactly 3 p.m., they walked into a conference room that screamed money and power. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A table that could seat 20. Helen Winters waiting with a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Douglas Harper, senior partner at Wellington & Associates. And Senator Richard Wellington himself. He stood when Gloria entered, tall, silver-haired, with the kind of practiced warmth politicians perfected. "Miss Jorgen, thank you for coming. I apologize for the circumstances of our meeting. This has been difficult for everyone involved." Gloria said nothing, just sat across from him with James beside her. Helen slid a document across the table. "The non-disclosure agreement. It's standard language. You agree not to disclose information about the 1992 birth, not to pursue claims of paternity or inheritance, and not to contact any member of the Wellington family. In exchange, you receive $1 million, transferred immediately upon signing." James took the document, read silently for 3 minutes. Then he looked up. "This agreement requires Miss Jorgen to deny biological connection to Sarah Wellington Ross. That's problematic if DNA evidence proves otherwise. You're asking her to lie about verifiable facts. We're asking her to refrain from making unsubstantiated claims," Douglas said smoothly. "The claims will be substantiated in 48 hours when the DNA results arrive." Silence. Heavy silence. Senator Wellington leaned forward. "Miss Jorgen, I'm going to be direct with you. My wife made a mistake 40 years ago. She was 18, scared, and under immense pressure from her parents. The child she gave birth to was placed with a woman who was supposed to provide proper care. That woman, Dorothy Jorgen, died when the child was 6. What happened after that is tragic, but it's not our responsibility. You're saying I'm not your responsibility. I'm saying that even if DNA proves biological connection, which we dispute, you were legally placed with Dorothy Jorgen. She became your legal guardian. The Wellingtons fulfilled their obligations. What happened afterward is unfortunate, but not actionable." James smiled. "Senator, are you saying on record that you're aware DNA evidence may prove Gloria is Sarah Wellington's biological daughter, but you're denying any responsibility for the circumstances of her adoption?" Wellington's eyes narrowed. "I'm saying that 40-year-old adoption records are complex, and Miss Jorgen's attempt to extort my family." "Extort?" James's voice went cold. "Your attorney contacted my client, offered money, threatened legal action. Miss Jorgen has made 0 demands. She simply exists. If that existence is threatening to you, that suggests your family has something to hide. We have nothing to hide." But Wellington's voice wavered. Then you won't mind if we proceed with DNA testing, allow the results to be made public, and let people draw their own conclusions about why a prominent political family paid $1 million to keep a waitress quiet. Helen interjected smoothly. This is exactly why we're offering a settlement. To avoid public speculation and media circus. $1 million is generous compensation for any hardship Miss Jurgen experienced. She walks away financially secure. We avoid unnecessary publicity. Everyone wins. Except I don't get to know the truth about where I came from, Gloria said quietly. I don't get answers about who my mother is, who my family might have been, why I spent 26 years in foster care wondering why nobody wanted me. Sarah Wellington Ross had been silent until now, sitting beside her husband with her hands folded carefully. When she spoke, her voice shook. I was 18. My parents told me the baby would have a better life with a family who wanted her. I didn't know. I didn't know she'd end up in foster care. I didn't know Dorothy would die. I thought. You thought you could forget, Gloria finished. You thought if you buried it deep enough, it would disappear. And for 40 years, it did. Until I stepped in front of a gun and reminded your world that some truths don't stay buried. I'm sorry. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry for what you went through. But taking this money, signing this agreement, it's the best outcome for everyone. You get financial security. We avoid a scandal that helps nobody. Please, please just sign. Gloria looked at the agreement. At the wire transfer confirmation showing $1 million ready to deposit. At the pen they'd placed in front of her. At the family who wanted her to disappear for the second time in her life. She stood. No. Miss Jurgen, Helen started. No. I'm not signing. I'm not taking your money. I'm going to wait for the DNA results. And when they prove I'm Sarah Wellington's daughter, I'm going to decide what to do with that truth. Maybe I'll stay quiet. Maybe I'll go public. Maybe I'll do nothing. But it'll be my choice. Not yours. Senator Wellington's face went hard. You're making a serious mistake. Maybe. But it's my mistake to make. Gloria turned to James. We're done here. As they walked out, Helen called after them. You have no idea what you've just done. The resources we have, the people we know, you'll regret this. Gloria didn't look back. In the car, James was grinning. That was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. They just admitted on tape that they're aware of potential DNA evidence, that they offered you money to stay quiet, and that they're threatening you if you refuse. If they try to destroy you now, we release that recording and they look like exactly what they are. Will it be enough? It'll be enough to make them think twice. And in fights like this, making them hesitate is half the battle. Sang-hoon called as they pulled away from the building. How did it go? James answered on speaker. Your girl just turned down $1 million and called out a state senator in his own conference room. I think she'll fit right in with your family. When they arrived back at the safe house, Kyung was waiting. Gloria hadn't expected to see her. But there she was, sitting in the library with tea and cookies, looking smaller than Gloria remembered, but no less formidable. Kyung stood when Gloria entered. Spoke in Korean. Sang-hoon translated. My mother says you made the right choice. That choosing truth over comfort is what family does. I don't even know if we're family yet, Gloria said. The DNA results aren't back. Kyung stepped forward, took Gloria's hands, and spoke in careful English. Already family. Heart knows. DNA just confirmation. And somehow, Gloria believed her. The DNA results were scheduled to arrive Friday at 3 p.m., exactly 72 hours after the samples were collected. Thursday night felt like waiting for execution or salvation. Gloria couldn't decide which. She couldn't sleep. At 2:47 a.m., she wandered down to the library and found Sang-hoon already there, working on a laptop with the singular focus of someone who didn't need sleep to function. Can't shut your brain off either? Gloria asked. He looked up, not startled, like he'd known she was coming. I'm building a contingency plan. If the DNA comes back positive, the Wellingtons will escalate. We need to be ready. Escalate how? Character assassination. They'll leak information about your arrests, your foster care history, your financial struggles. Paint you as an opportunistic con artist. If that doesn't work, he trailed off. If that doesn't work, then they'll try to make you disappear. Not through legal means. Through more permanent solutions. Gloria sat down heavily. You really think they'd kill me? I think powerful people who've spent 40 years protecting a secret don't suddenly develop morality when that secret threatens to surface. Sang-hoon closed his laptop. The senator's son is 20 points ahead in congressional polls. A scandal about an illegitimate black daughter from a coerced adoption could flip that race overnight. They're fighting for political survival. People do extreme things when survival's at stake. So what's your contingency plan? We make it impossible for you to disappear. We document everything. We create a dead man's switch. If anything happens to you, every piece of evidence we have gets released automatically to media outlets, law enforcement, advocacy groups. We make you too dangerous to touch. Gloria thought about that. That sounds like living in a cage. It's living alive, which beats the alternative. Sang-hoon's voice softened. I know this isn't what you wanted. You stepped in front of a gun to save an old lady, and now you're caught in a war between my family and one of California's most powerful political dynasties. It's not fair. Life's never been fair. I'm used to it. You shouldn't have to be. They sat in comfortable silence. Two people who understood that sometimes the world chewed you up regardless of whether you did the right thing. At 3:15 a.m., the security system triggered. Not a breach, just motion sensors detecting movement near the perimeter fence. Sang-hoon's phone buzzed. He checked the feed, frowned. Probably an animal, he said. But Gloria saw his posture change. Saw him become the predator who'd built an empire through controlled violence. At 3:22 a.m., another alert. Different sensor. Different section of fence. At 3:30 a.m., 3 more alerts in rapid succession. 2 coordinated to be animals. Basement, Sang-hoon said quietly. His voice was calm, but Gloria heard the command in it. Now. What's happening? Someone's testing our security. Seeing how we respond. Mapping our patterns. He was already moving, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Korean to his security team. At 3:33 a.m., the power cut. The whole house went dark. Emergency lights kicked in, dim, red, turning everything into a nightmare landscape. Gloria heard Sang-hoon curse in Korean. Then in English, they're coming. Get to the basement. Move. But before Gloria could move, the windows started shattering. Not gunfire. Something else. Methodical destruction. Professional. Glass exploded inward in rhythmic bursts. Living room, dining room, kitchen, library. Someone was systematically destroying every ground floor window. Sang-hoon grabbed Gloria's arm, pulled her toward the basement entrance hidden behind a bookshelf. His security team materialized from somewhere, weapons drawn, forming a defensive perimeter. The bookshelf swung open, revealing stairs down. They descended into a reinforced concrete bunker that looked like something from a spy movie. Weapons, medical supplies, communication equipment, enough food and water for weeks. Sang-hoon went immediately to monitors showing security feeds. Gloria watched over his shoulder as masked figures in tactical gear systematically destroyed the safe house's ground level. They weren't trying to kill anyone. They were searching for something. The evidence, Gloria breathed. The hospital records. The birth certificate. The bracelet. Sang-hoon's expression went cold. In your room. In the metal box Kyung gave you. They both turned to the monitor showing Gloria's bedroom. 3 figures were already there, methodically going through her things. One held up the metal box. Kyung's precious evidence collected over 40 years. No, Gloria whispered. The figure opened the box. Examined the contents with gloved hands. Then deliberately, almost ritually, pulled out a lighter and set everything on fire. The hospital bracelet. The birth certificate. The photograph of Kyung holding a baby. 40 years of proof, gone in seconds. Gloria felt something break inside her chest. Not just objects burning, history burning. The only physical evidence that she'd existed before Dorothy Jorgen. The only proof that she'd mattered to someone before foster care. Gone. They knew, she said, voice hollow. They knew exactly what to destroy. Which means someone leaked information about what evidence we had. Sang-hoon was already typing, pulling up records. My security team is family. Vetted. Trusted. But the lab technician, the attorney, the meeting today, someone saw too much and reported back. Upstairs, the destruction stopped. The tactical team withdrew as efficiently as they'd arrived. Within 4 minutes of the first window breaking, the last vehicle was pulling away. Sang-hoon's phone rang. He put it on speaker. "Mr. Jang, this is Helen Winters." The lawyer's voice was professional, pleasant, terrifying. "I trust you and your guest are unharmed. You have 30 seconds to explain why I shouldn't hunt down everyone involved in this attack and make them regret being born." Sang-hoon's voice was glacier cold. "Because it wasn't an attack. It was a demonstration. We've eliminated the physical evidence of your investigation. The DNA samples are another matter, but we're confident procedural irregularities will render them inadmissible in any proceeding." She paused. Miss Jorgen's credibility is also questionable given her background. Even if DNA proves biological connection, which we dispute, proving illegal adoption without physical evidence is impossible. You're left with a waitress making unsubstantiated claims against a prominent family. That's not a winning position, Mr. Jang. You just destroyed my property and threatened someone under my protection. We demonstrated the resources at our disposal. There's a difference. Helen's voice hardened. This is your final warning. The settlement offer is now off the table. Miss Jorgen walks away with nothing, or we make her life legally unbearable. Criminal charges for extortion. Civil suits for defamation. Immigration holds on the guards you've deployed. Yes, we know 3 of them have visa irregularities. Threatening my people is a mistake. It's leverage. You understand leverage, Mr. Jang. You've built your organization on it. Now we're using yours against you. Walk away from this. Let Miss Jorgen go back to her simple life. Or we destroy everything you've built piece by piece, using the same legal system you've spent 20 years avoiding. The line went dead. Gloria sank into a chair, feeling the weight of what just happened. They destroyed everything. Even if the DNA test proves I'm Sarah Wellington's daughter, I can't prove how I got to Dorothy. Can't prove the illegal adoption. Can't prove any of it. The DNA test still matters. Sang-hoon's voice was controlled, but Gloria saw his hands trembling with rage. Biological connection is binary. Either you're Sarah Wellington's daughter or you're not. The test will prove that. But without the hospital records, without the birth certificate, how do I prove the adoption was illegal? How do I prove anything except that Sarah had a baby she gave up? We prove it by making the Wellingtons defensive, by asking questions publicly that force them to explain why they're so threatened by a waitress who just wants to know where she came from. Sang-hoon pulled up files on his laptop. I've been documenting everything. The calls, the offers, the threats, the attack tonight. We have evidence of their desperation. That evidence creates questions. Questions aren't proof. No, but questions destroy political careers just as effectively as proof. He showed Gloria a timeline he'd been building. Every interaction, every threat, every escalation. When this goes public, and it will go public, people will ask why a prominent family is so desperate to silence someone. And desperate people look guilty. Gloria wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that truth would win, that justice would prevail, that powerful families couldn't just erase inconvenient people. But she'd spent 32 years learning that the world didn't work that way. What happens when the DNA results come back? She asked quietly. Then we decide. Together. Not me making decisions for you. Not my family pressuring you. You decide what you want to do with the truth. Sang-hoon met her eyes. But Gloria, whatever you decide, the Jang family stands behind you. Not because of debt or obligation. Because you're family. And we protect family. At 6 a.m., they emerged from the basement to survey the damage. Every window shattered. Furniture destroyed. Gloria's room ransacked. The metal box, Kyung's precious evidence, reduced to ashes in a fireproof bag the tactical team had thoughtfully provided. Thorough. Professional. A message delivered with military precision. Sang-hoon's security team had already called contractors. By noon, windows were being replaced. By evening, the house looked like nothing had happened. But Gloria knew better. Everything had happened. The Wellingtons had declared war. And wars fought by people with unlimited resources against people with nothing to lose rarely ended cleanly. At 2:47 p.m. Friday, Gloria's phone rang. The lab. Results were ready. Sang-hoon drove her to the lab personally. Kyung met them there, looking smaller and frilier than Gloria remembered. The cancer was winning, Gloria realized. Time was running out. The lab technician who'd collected the samples handed them a sealed envelope. Results are inside. You can open them here or take them with you. Gloria looked at Kyung, at the old woman who'd spent 40 years searching, at Sang-hoon, who'd mobilized an army to protect someone he barely knew. She opened the envelope. Read the results. And everything Gloria thought she knew about herself shattered. The document was dense with medical terminology and genetic markers that meant nothing to Gloria. She skimmed past the technical jargon to the conclusion at the bottom. Mitochondrial DNA analysis indicates a maternal biological relationship between sample A, Kyung-la, and sample B, Gloria Jorgen. Probability of direct maternal lineage, 99.97%. Gloria read it 3 times. The words didn't change. She looked up at Kyung, at Sang-hoon, at the lab technician who was carefully not watching this private moment. That's impossible, Gloria whispered. You're not my biological grandmother. You were just the nurse. You gave me to Dorothy. You're not. Kyung was crying, silent tears tracking down wrinkled cheeks. She spoke in rapid Korean, voice breaking. Sang-hoon's own eyes were wet as he translated. My mother says she needs to tell you the whole truth. The story she told you was partly true, but not completely. She was the nurse at Sarah Wellington's birth. Sarah did have a baby whose father the family rejected. But he paused, gathering himself. Gloria's heart was hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. 3 months before Sarah Wellington went into labor, my mother had a baby. A daughter. Born premature at 26 weeks. She survived for 6 weeks before. Sang-hoon's voice cracked. Before her lungs failed. She died the day before Sarah Wellington gave birth. Gloria couldn't breathe. Couldn't process. My mother was destroyed. Grieving. Barely functional. And when Sarah's baby was born, a healthy girl, the Wellington family made their offer. $50,000 to make the child disappear. No records. No questions. Kyung spoke again, and Sang-hoon continued translating through his own tears. My mother made a choice. She filed a false death certificate for Sarah's baby, using her own daughter's death record. Told the Wellingtons the baby had died of complications. And she took you home. Raised you as her own daughter. For 6 years. The room spun. Gloria grabbed the table to stay upright. Dorothy Jorgen, Sang-hoon continued, was the foster mother who kept you during those first 6 years while my mother worked. She was paid to care for you during work hours. But you lived with my mother. You were hers. Until Child Protective Services discovered she was an undocumented immigrant with a child who had no legitimate birth records. Kyung spoke in broken English, each word an effort. They took you. Put you in system. I fight, but no papers. No legal right. They deport me back to Korea. I lose you twice. Once my biological daughter. Once my chosen daughter. Gloria felt like she was drowning. You're my mother. Not just metaphorically. Biologically. I'm not Sarah Wellington's daughter. I'm yours. Yes. Kyung reached across the space between them, touched Gloria's face with trembling hands. My daughter. Lost for 26 years. But never forgotten. Never abandoned. Always loved. Sang-hoon spoke gently. When CPS took you at 6, you were traumatized. You stopped speaking for 3 months. They placed you with Dorothy Jorgen as an emergency foster placement because she'd been caring for you during work hours. But when Dorothy tried to adopt you legally, the paperwork was impossible. You had no legitimate birth records. Dorothy kept trying for 2 years. Then she died. Heart attack. After that, you disappeared into the system. 7 foster families in 12 years. And my mother came back to America searching for you. Gloria's mind was reeling through fragmented memories. A woman singing Korean lullabies. The smell of kimchi and sesame oil. Strong hands braiding her hair. Being ripped away by strangers while someone screamed in a language she didn't understand. I remember you, Gloria whispered. Not clearly. Just feelings. Safety. Warmth. And then losing it. I never stopped looking. Kyung's English was rough but determined. Every year. Every month. I build an organization to have resources to search. I hire investigators. I check every black woman named Jorgen in California. But you change names, foster families, different records. System swallows you. Until Tuesday night. Until you step in front of Gun. Until I see your face and know. My daughter. My child who I lose. Finally found. Gloria couldn't stop the tears. 32 years of wondering where she came from, who she belonged to, why nobody wanted her. And the whole time, someone had been searching. Someone had loved her. Someone had never given up. The DNA proves maternal relationships, Sang-hoon said quietly. You're not Sarah Wellington's daughter. You're Kyung-la's daughter. Which makes you my sister. Biological sister. Sister. Gloria had a brother. Had a mother. Had a family that was actually hers by blood and by choice and by 26 years of determined searching. What about Sarah Wellington's baby? Gloria managed through tears. What happened to the real baby? Kyung's face crumpled. Sang-hoon translated, Sarah's baby did die. Not immediately. She survived for 2 weeks. Severe birth defects. The Wellingtons had refused genetic testing during pregnancy. The baby had multiple organ failures. She died at 14 days old. The Wellingtons buried her with no fanfare, no announcement. As far as they knew, my mother had arranged everything. They never knew she'd substituted you in place of Sarah's baby. So the Wellingtons think I'm Sarah's daughter? Yes. They have no reason to believe otherwise. The hospital records my mother forged listed you as Sarah Wellington's biological child. The death certificate she filed used Sarah's baby's information. From their perspective, you're their illegitimate daughter who somehow survived and is now threatening to expose them. Gloria laughed, a sound caught between hysteria and relief. So they're destroying their own lives over a threat that doesn't actually exist. I'm not their scandal. I'm nobody to them. Except the DNA test proves biological connection to my mother, not to Sarah Wellington. Which means when we show them these results, they'll realize they've been fighting the wrong battle. Will they care? Will it matter to them? Sang-hoon considered. It might. Because if you're not their biological daughter, you have no claim to their family, their legacy, their wealth. You're not a threat to Senator Wellington's career or his son's campaign. You're just a woman who happened to be born the same week as Sarah's baby and got caught up in a 40-year misunderstanding. So we show them the DNA results and they leave me alone? Maybe. Or they escalate because now they're embarrassed. Powerful people don't like being wrong. Don't like admitting they destroyed someone's home and threatened their life over a misidentification. Kyung spoke and Sang-hoon translated. My mother says it doesn't matter what the Wellingtons do. What matters is you know the truth. You're not abandoned, not unwanted, not nobody from nowhere. You're hers. You've always been hers. Gloria looked at this old woman, her mother, her actual mother, who'd spent 40 years searching, who'd built an empire partly to have resources to find one lost child, who'd carried the guilt of losing her for 26 years. I don't remember much, Gloria admitted. Just fragments. A voice singing. Feeling safe. Then strangers taking me away. I sing to you every night. Kyung said in careful English. Korean lullabies. You fall asleep in my arms. You call me Yama. Mother. Her voice broke. When they take you, you scream for me. I try to fight, but I have no papers, no rights. They say I kidnap you. They deport me. And you forget. I didn't forget. Not completely. I just didn't understand the memories. Gloria crossed the space between them and pulled Kyung into a hug. The old woman felt fragile in her arms, bones too prominent, body ravaged by cancer. But she held on with surprising strength. I found you, Kyung whispered. Finally found you. I found you too, Gloria whispered back. They stood there while Sang-hoon quietly handled the paperwork with the lab technician, while the world outside continued spinning, while the Wellingtons plotted their next move against a threat that had just evaporated. Because Gloria wasn't their problem anymore. She was Kyung-la's daughter. She was Sang-hoon Jang's sister. She was family in the most literal sense possible. And that changed everything. So here's the plot twist nobody saw coming, including the Wellingtons who just burned down a safe house and threatened legal annihilation over a scandal that doesn't exist. Gloria isn't their illegitimate daughter. She's not their problem. She's not there. And when they realize they've been fighting a ghost, when they understand that every threat, every offer, every midnight attack was aimed at the wrong person, that's when this story gets really interesting. Click subscribe button because the Jang family doesn't forget. And they definitely don't forgive. Stay tuned. The reckoning's coming. The meeting with the Wellingtons was Sang-hoon's idea. Gloria wanted to just walk away, let them wonder, let them panic. But Sang-hoon argued that leaving powerful people in uncertainty was dangerous. They need to know they're not threatened, he explained. Otherwise, they keep escalating. Keep trying to neutralize a danger that doesn't exist. We show them the DNA results. We explain the situation. We make it clear you're not their problem. Then they have no reason to come after you. And if they don't believe us, then we make it very uncomfortable for them to continue their campaign of harassment. Sang-hoon's smile was cold. I'm very good at making powerful people uncomfortable. The meeting was arranged for Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after Gloria had stepped in front of that gun and changed her entire life. Neutral location, a conference room at a downtown LA hotel. The Wellingtons brought their lawyer and a private investigator. Sang-hoon brought Gloria, James Chun, and a USB drive containing every thread, every call, every piece of evidence of the Wellingtons' escalating campaign. Senator Richard Wellington looked older than he had at the previous meeting. Tired. Lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. Sarah Wellington Ross sat beside him, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. Helen Winters started immediately. Mr. Jang, Miss Jorgen, we're prepared to. We have DNA results. James interrupted smoothly. He slid a folder across the table. Completed by an independent laboratory. Chain of custody documented. Results are conclusive. Helen opened the folder, read silently. Her expression shifted from professional calm to confusion. This shows maternal biological relationship to Kyung-la, not to Sarah Wellington. Correct. James's voice was neutral. Professional. Gloria Jorgen is not Sarah Wellington's biological daughter. She is Kyung-la's biological daughter, who was approximately the same age and was being cared for by Ms. La during the time Sarah Wellington gave birth in 1992. Senator Wellington stared at the document. I don't understand. The hospital records were falsified, Sang-hoon said flatly. My mother was the attending nurse. She falsified records for personal reasons that have nothing to do with your family. Gloria was raised by my mother for 6 years, then placed in foster care after my mother was deported. The entire situation, from your perspective, was a misunderstanding. Sarah Wellington Ross spoke for the first time, her voice barely above a whisper. Then my daughter, my real daughter, died at 2 weeks old of complications related to birth defects, James said gently. I'm sorry for your loss, Mrs. Wellington Ross. But Gloria Jorgen has no biological connection to your family. She is not your daughter. She never was. Silence. Heavy, disbelieving silence. Helen recovered first, lawyer instincts kicking in. This could be fabricated. Another DNA test conducted by a laboratory of our choosing would show the same results. James interrupted. Mitochondrial DNA doesn't lie. Gloria shares direct maternal lineage with Kyung-la, not with Sarah Wellington Ross. You've been fighting a battle against the wrong person. Senator Wellington's face was turning red. We've spent the resources we've deployed, the attack on your property, all because of a misidentification? All because you assumed, Sang-hoon corrected coldly. You assumed Gloria was threatening you. You assumed she wanted exposure or money or revenge. You never asked. You just attacked, offered bribes, made threats, destroyed property, all against someone who had no connection to your family and no interest in your secrets. He leaned forward. And now we're here to explain why that was a catastrophic mistake. Sang-hoon produced the USB drive. This contains recordings of every call your attorney made to Gloria, every threat, every bribe offer, video footage of the attack on my property that destroyed 40 years of my mother's carefully preserved evidence, documentation of the private investigator you hired to surveil Gloria's workplace. He slid it across the table. I could release this to media outlets. Could let the world see how a prominent political family responded to what they perceived as a threat, with intimidation, bribery, and property destruction. Your son's congressional campaign would implode. Your career would end. All because you attacked first and verified facts never. Helen started to speak. Sang-hoon raised a hand. But I'm not going to do that. Because Gloria isn't interested in destroying you. She's interested in living her life without being threatened, surveilled, or terrorized by powerful people who made assumptions. He paused. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave Gloria alone. Permanently. No more surveillance. No more threats. No more offers. You're going to acknowledge that you made a mistake, that you're deeply sorry for the harm you caused, and that if you ever come near her again, I will release every piece of evidence I have and make sure your family name becomes synonymous with illegal harassment. Senator Wellington's jaw clenched. That sounds like blackmail. It sounds like protection, Sang-hoon corrected. I'm protecting someone you attacked based on false assumptions. This is me being generous. Trust me, you don't want to see me when I'm not feeling generous. Sarah spoke again, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I spent 40 years thinking my daughter might be alive somewhere. And when you appeared, when the DNA test was mentioned, I thought maybe. She couldn't continue. Gloria felt something unexpected, pity. This woman had lost a child and spent 40 years living with that loss. Learning the daughter who'd briefly survived wasn't actually hers, that had to hurt in ways Gloria couldn't imagine. I'm sorry for your loss, Gloria said quietly. I'm sorry your daughter died. I'm sorry you spent 40 years wondering. But I'm not her. I never was. And attacking me won't bring her back. I know. Sarah wiped her eyes. I know. And I'm sorry, truly sorry, for everything we did to you. The threats, the offers, the fear we caused. None of it was justified. Senator Wellington looked at his wife, then at Gloria. When he spoke, his voice had lost its political polish. What do you want? Money? A settlement? What will it take to make this go away? I want you to leave me alone, Gloria said simply. I want to go back to my life without looking over my shoulder. I want to work at Pearl's Diner and live in my apartment and not worry about being destroyed by people who think power means they can erase anyone who inconveniences them. That's all. That's everything. The senator nodded slowly. You have my word. No more surveillance. No more threats. We'll leave you in peace. Your word isn't worth much, Sang-hoon said coldly. But this is. He produced a document. A legally binding agreement. You acknowledge that Gloria Jorgen has no connection to your family. You agree to cease all surveillance and contact. You agree to pay restitution for the property damage caused to my safe house. $50,000 should cover it. And you agree that any violation of these terms results in immediate release of all evidence to media outlets. Helen read the document, whispered with the senator. Finally, he signed. As they left the meeting, Gloria felt lighter than she had in a week. The threat was neutralized. The Wellingtons would leave her alone. She could go back to being invisible. Except she wasn't invisible anymore. She was Kyung-la's daughter, Sang-hoon Jang's sister, part of a family that had searched for her for 26 years. 3 weeks later, Gloria stood behind the counter at Pearl's Diner, pouring coffee for the early morning crowd. The diner had been fully restored. New windows, fresh paint, updated equipment courtesy of the Wellingtons' restitution check, and some additional investments from the Jang family. Mr. Park worked beside her, grateful for the partnership that had saved his business from slowly dying. Booth 7 had a small brass plaque now, reserved for family. Every Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m., Kyung sat there. Sometimes with Sang-hoon. Sometimes with other members of the Jang organization who Gloria was slowly meeting and learning to recognize. Always with the contentment of someone who'd found what they'd been searching for. Gloria poured her mother's green tea, unsweetened, the way Kyung preferred, and thought about the gun that had been pointed at Kyung's chest 3 weeks ago. She'd stepped in front of it without thinking, without calculating, just pure instinct to protect someone she'd thought was a stranger. That instinct had given her everything she'd spent 32 years looking for. Family, home, belonging, answers. You're quiet today, Sang-hoon said, sitting at the counter during his lunch break. He'd started coming to the diner every day, claiming he liked the coffee better than the expensive cafes near his office. Gloria suspected it was more about checking on her, making sure she was adjusting okay to having a family after a lifetime alone. Just thinking about how different my life is now, Gloria admitted. 3 weeks ago, I was nobody. Now I'm my sister, our mother's daughter, part of something bigger. Sang-hoon smiled. The warm smile he'd started showing more often, the one that made him look younger and more human. Is that a bad thing? No, just different. I'm still getting used to it. Take your time. Family isn't going anywhere. He paused. Though mother wants you to come to Sunday dinner this week. The whole family will be there. Fair warning. It's loud, chaotic, and they'll ask you 1,000 questions. Gloria thought about Sunday dinners in foster homes. Awkward meals where she never quite fit, never quite belonged, always felt like an outsider looking in. Will it always be like this? She asked. Will I always feel like I'm learning how to be part of a family instead of just knowing? Probably. Sang-hoon's honesty was refreshing. You missed 26 years. Can't get those back. But you've got the rest of your life to build new memories. That's not nothing. Kyung called from booth 7. Spoke in Korean. Sang-hoon translated. Mother says come sit with us. Coffee can wait. Gloria looked at Mr. Park, who waved her away with a smile. She poured 3 cups of coffee and joined her mother and brother in booth 7. Outside, Los Angeles continued its usual chaos. Traffic and noise and millions of people rushing toward futures they couldn't predict. Inside Pearl's diner, Gloria Jorgen, daughter of Kyung La, sister of Sang-hoon Jang, survivor of 32 years of searching for where she belonged, sat with her family and felt, for the first time in her life, like she'd finally come home. Some debts, she thought, looking at her mother's peaceful face, were worth paying. Some acts of kindness changed everything. And sometimes, just sometimes, stepping in front of a gun for a stranger led you exactly where you were always meant to be. The end. Core message. Sometimes one act of courage, stepping in front of danger to protect a stranger, reveals the family you've been searching for your entire life. And sometimes the people who claim you're nobody are wrong. You were always somebody's daughter. You just had to find your way home. If this story reminded you that kindness matters, that family isn't always who raises you, but sometimes who never stops searching for you, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button. It's free, it takes 2 seconds, and it tells me that stories about invisible people finally being seen are worth telling. Gloria spent 32 years being nobody. Don't let this story disappear the same way. Subscribe, and let's know where you are watching from. Share it. Let's make sure the forgotten get remembered.